The series of events that have transpired is a wonderful case of serendipity. Buck and I crossing paths while I was working on his new building as part of my duties here at Fort Stewart. It's just a wonderful series of things that have come together.
When I asked Philip, who is that good-looking guy in the picture there? It is an outgrowth of my training as a museum professional, trained to look for clues and to follow up on clues. It's really history research is a lot of detective work. It wouldn't matter who had that picture of a strapping young fellow wearing a 3rd Division patch on his sleeve. I'm going to follow up on that. And what it turned into, though, is that this soldier, this 3rd Division dog-faced soldier, was part of a unit that we didn't really know existed. We knew that there was pack artillery in World War II that was used in Italy, but we had not had concrete proof that 3rd Division soldiers were part of using this particular piece of technology.
My father would say that he was just one of many who did what they had to do. They did their duty. He would say that he didn't do anything special except respond to the call. He volunteered. He would say, "What's all the fuss about?" I mean, I just went and did what I was asked to do. And I came home and I raised my family and I was a good dad.
There have never were men like them and never will be again. And thanks to them, we have the freedoms we enjoy now. We're honoring our father this way, and I'm just blown away by it. It's wonderful. I can bring my grandchildren here, and they can bring their children.
It makes you realize that something that your father did was really special, and that worthy of recognition, and just the idea of having a permanent display here at the Fort Stewart Museum is going to certainly call me to come out here and visit it on numerous occasions.
I'm blessed to have resources like this to draw from to create a brand new exhibit in a brand new to us building, a repurposed battalion headquarters where 5 years ago this place was covered up with cavalrymen planning a real-world mission. And here we are sitting in a space that will serve Fort Stewart, Georgia for the foreseeable future as a first-class, world-class museum. To connect together, to stitch together this rich tapestry of heritage. That's what we want to put out here. That's what I want to have a 19-year-old soldier, first duty post, new to the Army. I want him inspired. I want him inspired. I want him to know that that patch that he's wearing on his sleeve never failed, never faltered, never will, and it's his turn now.
January the 13th, 1944. I am starting this diary so I can keep daily occurrences of the coming campaign. Have been back from combat some 8 weeks. Was the same 26 before. The 3rd Division was called back. Was expecting to go back into the hills of Italy, but after we were called to go back to the outskirts of Naples. This means only one thing: invasion. We're back 2 or 3 days before we went into training for the coming campaign.
I'm reading from Pop's war writings from the 28th of January, 1944. And he writes, "Everything was quiet until about 11 a.m., and then all hell broke loose. Jerry threw everything he had at us, including the kitchen stove. Shells coming by the dozens. I don't see how the doughboys can stand it. The 10th Engineers had about 1.5 tons of TNT under a bridge, and Jerry hit it with a mortar shell, blowing it sky high. They lost about 8 men in the deal, dead plus wounded. And one of his buddies named Hazel, he writes, Hazel got hit when Jerry threw a 150 shell right in his foxhole. Lucky for him, it was a dud. If it had went off, it would have killed 4 or 5 of the boys. About 4 o'clock, Jerry threw a counterattack which lasted about an hour. We all had to get our rifles and were expecting to be fighting side by side with the infantry. Luckily, the doughboys held their own, and the 30s were really barking. About an hour after dark, we got our march orders, and I really thank God for that command. This was the pack artillery that got its first retreat as it was too close and too hot to stay up. We went back to our old position. I guess it might be called a withdrawal according to plan. At any rate, I was thankful to get out, as this has been the hottest post I have been in thus far, and I hope it is the last.
This is from Italy, and there's 2 passages here. The one from Italy reads, "Have gone through the 29th Repo Depot and have been assigned to the 3rd Infantry Division. Have been assigned to the 3rd Pack and don't know the first thing about it. Have had to learn the hard way in combat. We Americans are supposed to have the best trained army in the world. It was here in southern Italy that I have lived and suffered in only a short time. Mud, rain, sleet, snow, chow no good, and very little water. No one can ever imagine what the American boys are going through. Men with frozen feet, half starved, but this has been chosen for us to do, so we carry on." Anzio, May 23, 1944. The great day came on May 23, 1944, and we were able to repay a debt that was way overdue. We did. He ran like a rat, a beat one. A rat he was, and for 122 days he had a playhouse. He killed when he felt like it, but now it was our turn, and we really did a swell job. Have never fired so much in all my life. Jerry lost practically everything he had from Anzio to Rome. Tanks, guns of all description, and many dead. How good it made me feel to see it all paid back and in full. At Rome, we were relieved after 134 days of continuous combat. 134 days where men became old and their nerves shaky. But then again, such things occur in war, and war it is.
There's only one good thing that war can do and often bring. It is the guidance of God, our Maker. In times of trouble and uncertainty, one looks up and asks for a helping hand. War is indeed a curse upon man, and man must suffer in things which he has done wrong. Craig Noonan, Neidlinger, Sr. They were going up a mountain in Italy on a real narrow path, and the load on the mule shifted and pulled the mule off the path down the mountain. And they could hear that mule hit boulders and rocks and all the way down the mountain, and you could hear the air being forced out of his lungs. So they knew the mule was dead. And Daddy would make the sound of the mule hitting the rocks, which was really funny. And so when they got to the bottom of the mountain, there was the mule grazing, and the pack was all twisted around him and twisted around his legs, but the pack had buffered his fall and kept him from getting killed. And Daddy said the barrel was down on the ground, and the straps and harnesses were all twisted around. The pack had buffered his fall, and he had survived.
They were in a convoy of sorts, and they came under aerial attack again. It's a recurring theme. And it's January, February in Italy, cold, snow on the ground. Dad dives under a truck for cover. For the first thing he's supposed to do, dive under cover. And it says he saw tracers hitting in the snow as the guy passed over. So at some point, the German Messerschmitt disengages. After the attack's over, Daddy crawls out. He had jumped under a fuel truck. And if one of those tracers or hot rounds had hit that fuel truck, you and I wouldn't be having this pleasant conversation today.
They were ready to go home. They were ready to get out of there, and they were tired of waiting. And so my father was assigned to paint a truck green. And at that time, he was a corporal. But when the officer made the assignment to my father, I finally got it out of my father. It took many years to get this story from him, because I had noticed that at some point in time he was a corporal, but after that, later on, he had become a private. And he said that when the officer told him the truck needed to be painted, he informed the officer that he didn't see why the truck needed to be painted, because they were going to be going home. It was at that point in time the officer said, "Private Neidlinger, the truck will be painted, and it will be painted now." So in that one statement, my father went from corporal to private.
Many things he told me over the years when I was a kid, that the proximity of them to the German lines was very close. I mean, less than 1,000 yards, and they would be watching each other through binoculars. He said you could see the reflection of the sunlight in their binoculars. That's just how close they were. I think also that he would tell us the German 88s always came down. That's all they used on them practically was German 88s, and my father was almost killed a couple of times because German 88 shells would land in close proximity to him, but fortunately they were all duds. So the reliability of the gun might have been excellent along with the accuracy, but the reliability of the shells can be called into question, because there were 3 times my father was almost killed by German 88 shells. They all tunneled underground towards him within a few feet, and they didn't go off. One of these was in a burned out house with a little boy. A shell was fired, it came underneath the foundation of the house and tunneled into the room where they were, and it didn't go off. My father hadn't seen his 21st birthday yet, I don't believe. So I just think it's incredible what they were able to accomplish.